When I turned around, Maria was standing there by the entrance. But her expression and the feeling about her presence, felt exactly the same as the servants. Whether your wavelength matches or not is determined at birth. Battler, you were born with a mismatched wavelength. That's why you can't see her. That's why you can't meet with her. That's why you can't talk to her. You're the type Beatrice hates the most. Maria laughed like it was funny, but it sounded extremely eerie. It was almost like she was laughing at me because I alone didn't understand. Want to know about Beatrice? Beatrice is a 1,000-year-old witch. All of the demons at her command, she can harness the power of alchemy to create the Philosopher's Stone and a vast quantity of gold. Grandfather built up all the vast wealth of the Ushinomiya family by making a contract with her. Yesterday I read Beatrice's letter, didn't I? That was real. Well, I guess it's pointless for me to try and force you to believe. After all, it looks like you were born without a trace of the sixth sense. What are you talking about? Witches? Demons? Who told you about that? I heard it from Beatrice herself. Maria kept doing that unpleasant laugh. However, the servants who watched over this didn't even blink. He heard it from that witch in the portrait adorning the entrance hall.
Raiders detected. Welcome and enjoy your stay.
Thank you so much for the raid, Eris. Maria kept on laughing in a weird voice, as though this was nothing more or less than the truth. Yes, it's probably because he got a mascot-style name. That's very true. Maria, it might be rude to ask, but I'll ask one more time, okay? Who gave you that letter yesterday? I got it from Beatrice. How many times must I tell you before you understand? You don't get it, do you? You can't see it. You can't believe it, can you? Just then, Maria's laughter suddenly stopped. Battler, you still don't understand. Beatrice-sama exists. She exists, you say, but where? Like I said, Beatrice-sama exists here. That's right. Now that I think about it, I've been feeling for a while now, the servants' eyes haven't been pointed in quite the right direction. I'd figured they were just staring absent-mindedly, but that wasn't the case. The four here, Genji-san, Kanan-kun, Kumasawa-san, and Maria, everyone except me, was looking at a spot right behind me. Holding my breath tightly, I slowly looked over my shoulder. Of course, there wasn't anyone there. I've known that the whole time. However, everyone in the room except me was focused on that point as if there was something there. Beatrice is the mighty Golden Witch, who has lived for 1,000 years. But since she can't show her form to humans of the wrong wavelength, she can't talk to them. And you know what? That's really sad. It means she truly despises it when people like you, who were born without a fragment of the ability needed to sense magic, deny that she exists. You're lucky, Battler. Good thing I gave you that charm yesterday, right? Don't you realize what kind of curse Beatrice would have put on you by now if you hadn't been carrying it around? You're really lucky, Battler. Oh, that scorpion keychain? I thought that was some cheap gift or something. But are you saying it has some real power? If it weren't for that, you'd be lying in that storehouse as a sacrifice with your face crushed by now. You're so lucky, Battler. Did we tell Maria what happened exactly in the storehouse? Hey, Eris. I'm feeling eerie about the fact that she knew about that. I see. So if it weren't for that, I'd have been killed by now. Battler, why don't you believe in Beatrice? Even though she exists. Right now, over there, look. Hey, I'll bet you want to believe it now. Believe it. And thank me for giving you that charm. If it weren't for that, you'd be in the storehouse right now. But then, maybe you would have saved someone else in exchange, right? Right then, I burst into laughter. Playing witches had been pretty fun up until a second ago, but unfortunately, that last one seemed to be too much for me to gloss over. Ha! Then it's all useless, isn't it, Maria? If that's true, then I'm sorry, but it's all useless. When Maria saw me suddenly start laughing, she stopped. Even though she didn't understand what I was laughing at, She realized it wouldn't be pleasant for her. I thought it might hurt you, so I didn't say it earlier, but... Well, I thought I'd put that charm you gave me in my pocket, but I must have dropped it somewhere. So the charm can't be the only reason I'm alive now, and even though I should have been cursed by the witch, I'm perfectly fine. Sorry, but I don't believe in things I don't see with my own eyes. Sixth senses? Wavelengths? Magic sensitivity? Sorry, but I don't believe in fake stuff like that. When I hear the girls in class start talking about how good or bad their ability to sense the supernatural is, it pisses me off. I don't know how much grandfather is paying you, but if you're trying to talk me into joining some cult, believe me, you won't be able to do it that easily. Battler-sama. You guys are free to believe whatever you want. However, when it comes to the things I believe, the one who decides it will always be me. Sorry, but I can't believe in something as shady as Beatrice until I've seen her with my own eyes. I spoke forcefully and sharply. Then Maria started cackling again. Hehe. Well, that's just fine, isn't it? Eventually, even people like you with totally mismatched wavelengths will be able to see Beatrice. Very soon, she will revive. Beatrice will revive. Once that happens, she's promised to talk with me and play with me a lot. There will be absolutely no need for you to doubt or for us to force you to believe. She will appear very soon. Hehe. Maria, you are creepy. You are the creepiest child. After a meal, some people tend to head to the bathroom, while others prefer to relax for a bit. It seemed that several people had left the parlor, just like I did when I went to the kitchen to drink some water. In the end, Aunt Natsui reluctantly retracted her order that everyone remain packed into the parlor, on the condition that no one headed out on their own or strayed too far. Then how did you leave, Battler? In any case, if 11 people are shut up in the same room starting early in the morning, the area will start to stagnate. Also, quite some time had passed, so everyone was starting to recover from the shock of that morning. Their sense of danger might have been... However, it was a certain fact that 6 people had been killed inside this mansion, so no one was completely negligent. So whenever they went out into the hallway for a breath of fresh air, trying to act tough, they would quickly get scared of standing there, isolated, and would eventually return to the parlor. I guess it's like the north wind and the sun. If you force someone to stay shut in, they'll resist, but if you tell them to do whatever they want, they'll come back obediently. People really do like not doing what they're told. Oh boy, that hits a little close to home. When the servants finished cleaning up from the meal, they returned obediently to the parlor, just as Aunt Natsui had told them to, sat on a sofa near the entrance, patiently awaiting orders. Maria, almost as though she had suddenly finished playing witches, returned to the pure Maria I knew well, saying, "Ooh. What in the world happened back there?" I hadn't felt even an atom of the presence of this person called Beatrice, who was supposedly standing behind me invisible. However, it felt like I glimpsed a little of that presence inside Maria. Great. When Maria starts talking about witches, her personality changes. Battler-kun, you also saw it down by the beach yesterday, right? You mean that scorpion keychain? No, I don't mean like when her feelings were hurt. Talk about her having a dual personality or something. Yeah, that happens sometimes too. That thing Maria did where she was talking about the magic circle does happen every now and then. Freaky though. Apparently Jessica had spotted that hee Maria a few times. Maria's got 2 modes, hee and ooh. Oh boy. Just happened to catch it at a bad moment, and I was pretty freaked out seeing it for the first time. So what is it? Does Maria have a dual personality or something? Or are you saying that her spiritual sense really is that strong and she's being possessed by a spirit or whatever? No, I don't think it's that. Haven't you ever experienced it? When you were small, didn't you ever want to be someone other than yourself? When humans are born, no one has any individuality. However, when they reach their growth period, their sense of self starts to be born. They want to be different from other people. But since everyone else in their class is learning the same things at the same rate and being forced into the same lifestyle, of course they aren't going to find anything that makes them different from everyone else around them. Once they realize that, the first thing they do is start breaking the rules. It's called their rebellious stage. As everyone else follows the rules, they want to show off their individuality by breaking them. So even those who try to act tough, mocking everyone around them, calling them childish, can actually be viewed as cute kids searching for themselves, if you look at it this way. Well, I'm lecturing about all this like I'm so smart, but I actually got it secondhand from George Anarchy. I myself was one of those embarrassing guys who thought it was cool to act like a little bastard. Well, that was when I was at the age where you try to show off for the opposite sex. The main feature of the growing period lies in an impulse to break away from your life as a kid, like a chick trying to crack open the shell of their egg. Do you know what makes children and adults different? Age? You mean size? No, it's experience. Adults can look down on children because children have very little life experience. The reason they snort at everything children say is because they think kids know nothing about the real world. Yeah, I understand that. When you're a kid, you talk like you've got life all figured out somehow, trying to act like an adult. No matter what kids say, adults just snort at them and say they're too naive or that they'll understand when they get older or something. Well, it's probably true, but to a kid it's just annoying, like they're being looked down upon. I get it. It's a question of knowledge and experience. Well, I guess you're right that there's no reason to respect a person of their age if they've just wasted their lives. Therefore, during the period they tried to separate themselves from other children, they also try to take on personality traits different from those around them. If knowledge and experience is what separates kids and adults, I get it. If they know something no one else knows, it becomes part of their identity. You know, when I was in elementary school, I'd learn things no one else knew, get things no one else had, wear things no one else wore, and became a bit of a hero for it. I'll bet you've done the same thing, Battler. Yeah. It was definitely an age when I wanted to excel in some skill or other. I see, so that's because I was trying to separate myself from being a child, or going through my growing period, in other words. If you put a positive spin on it, the growing period forces you to separate yourself from others, thereby pushing you to gain skills and knowledge no one else has. This is also interesting from a sociological standpoint, because people hate being like everyone else. They try to learn skills other people don't know. This way, society can acquire the broad range of skills it needs to survive. Quality of the gods programming is truly surprising. Well, unique personality traits can also be negative, right? Like if, say, everyone in the class was studying hard and I was the only one slacking off trying to stand out. Okay, that last bit really was true about me. It's only recently that I've been able to thank the middle school teacher who slapped me after school. But, well, I tried to jump over things no one else could. Sprint as fast as I could, and trying to lap those guys with good grades when we did a marathon. It felt like doing it. It was in my nature that if I couldn't study well, then at least I could get back at them by exercising. See, so I really did go through a proper growing period. I guess boys really do tend to focus on more physical stuff. You know, girls of the same age tend to focus on more mental, spiritual things. I'll bet there were groups of girls in your classes that got really interested in fortune-telling and their senses. Yeah, there were. They'd come over asking me for my sign and my blood type, then they'd laugh, I thought so, haha. It really got on my nerves. No matter which class you go to, girls like fortune-telling. Deciding whether your spirit sense is strong or weak, what your sensitivity is, whether you can see seeable, that kind of thing definitely happened to me. That's because fortune-telling and the spiritual senses are things that aren't taught in school. Girls, who tend to be more introverted, it's a genre that's easy to build an identity upon, and one that holds a lot of interest for them. It's like how when boys enter their growing period, they start acting tough and rebel against adults. When girls enter their growing period, they start getting interested in that kind of thing. Well, I didn't, though. So Maria having so much interest in the occult isn't that rare among girls her age. I feel like we already went over this to some extent. Like, even if we accept that, I wonder if that explains that creepy dual personality thing. Actually, I think I probably could accept that explanation, more or less. As you just said, becoming an adult means gaining knowledge and experience. So, to gain that, it's necessary for children to learn all sorts of things and break free from childhood. long excuse for Chinubo. Kinda, yeah. As you just said, becoming an adult, gaining knowledge and experience. So to gain that, it's necessary for children to learn all sorts of things and break free from childhood. However, there are certain convenient delusions that you see often in the world of children, both now and in the past. Chunibo. Nibio. Okay. See all the time in manga and anime, right? It's kind of like that. Like you've got memories from a previous life that starts to resurface. Like you're being possessed by the soul of the great something or whatever. Oh, or it could be that a sleeping gene gets awakened. Or maybe a sealed power of memory return. There's all kinds. For some reason, stuff like that's really popular at that age. Why is that? All those examples you've just mentioned are illusions that let children immediately add to their sum of knowledge and experience. A 9-year-old girl says she has a 1,000-year-old witch possessing her, then she gains a 1,009-year-old identity. So basically, studying is annoying. But these delusions are convenient for people who want to brag about having a skill no one else has, amazing the people around them. So you could brag about something without having to work hard or study. I see. Isn't that a kid's greatest dream? Furthermore, in their desire to separate themselves from being kids, they always project an image of their ideal self. It's not rare for that desired self to become an alternate personality. Even you, Battler-kun, probably had a slightly different personality at home and at school, right? It'd probably be embarrassing if your friends at school saw how you were at home. At school, you try to project yourself as you want to be, but home is where you're your true self. So in other words, I'm changing my personality depending on the situation. Are you trying to say having multiple personalities is actually really common? A girl who's a fan of the occult might say she's being possessed or awakened. Honestly, there are some kids who change the personality so much it's creepy. And some boys do it too, right? Guys who say they've blown their top and suddenly turn into some overplayed violent character. I'll bet they think it's pretty cool, but it's painful to watch. Let's sum this all up. You're saying that even if a girl about Maria's age shows a creepy second personality like she did a minute ago, it isn't such a rare or unusual thing. But that's right. Identity is an important factor when building up one's sense of self. Make fun of it could actually cause children to go back into their shells. So it's important to go along with them to some degree. Although the broad-mindedness of a parent determines whether they play along in full or not. Aniki, I can't believe you're single. You sound like you've already raised kids through middle school. I mean, he wasn't single up until a couple hours ago this morning. So I wonder if Aunt Rosa also knew much about Maria's dual personality. She knew about it. Just between us, Aunt Rosa really hated it. She said it was unpleasant and that Maria was becoming increasingly isolated from the rest of the class. So anytime Maria started talking about the occult or laughing like a witch, she'd slap her. It looks like Maria stopped talking that way in front of her. Maybe that thing back there was just a little game from a girl facing her growing. Just a girl trying to show that she was different and independent by holding interest in witches and occult. Since she wanted to be different from herself, young as she was switching between her normal personality and the personality of her ideal, a witch. At first I'd found that very disturbing, but after being lectured to by George Anarchy, it felt like this was a path everyone walked down at one time or another. Okay, that doesn't explain though why the servants were willing to play along and look at a spot that Maria was and acting like there was something there. I haven't told anyone, but when I was in kindergarten, I joined up with a little gang of kids trying to form an Earth Defense Force, saying we'd help protect peace on Earth. My face turns red when I remember how during that period during what we called battle practice, we would chant EDF, EDF. Just like usual, Maria was relaxing, immersed in the TV, oohing and laughing just like any girl her age. But on the inside, another personality, that of the ideal witch she respected and blindly accepted, was sleeping. That wasn't anything extraordinary. It was perfectly natural for a girl her age. Okay. I've calmed down a little. Shock from my bizarre experience in the kitchen just now is fading away. If I hadn't talked to Anarchy and Jessica, I might still be frightened by the idea that an invisible witch is standing right behind me. However, can I really accept that as an explanation for what happened back there? It had just been Maria, I could have explained it as the fickle delusions of a growing girl. But Genji-san, Kanon-kun, and Kumasawa Ba-chan had also been there. Thank you. Thank you for mentioning that. None of them had denied what Maria said. They silently accepted that Beatrice exists. I was starting to feel a little uneasy. Aunt Eva's position was that no 19th person existed, that the crime was an inside job tied to the family core. On the other hand, Aunt Natsui's position was that the culprit was hiding somewhere outside the mansion. So she rejected the possibility of an inside job and supported the idea that a 19th person existed. In the kitchen, Maria and the servants supported the idea of a 19th person. But according to them, this 19th person is human. They said it was an invisible witch carrying out some mysterious plan. They're a 19th person or not. Is the culprit human or a witch? For some reason, I couldn't just laugh off any of those possibilities. Not even the most ridiculous story about the witch. Jessica, all I know about the story of the witch is that the adults made it up to keep the kids too scared to enter the forest. But is the story different here in the mansion? I feel the same way you do, okay? I think it was just a stupid ghost story that parents made up so their kids would listen to them. I can't deny that the atmosphere inside the mansion makes it a little hard to say it aloud. After all, grandfathers proclaimed that Beatrice exists. Because of their position, the servants can't doubt that. Even Uncle Kraus and Aunt Natsui don't want to get into a fight with him, so on the surface they go along with it. So it's probably fair to say that doubting the existence of Beatrice is taboo to those who live and work inside this mansion. Unlike the rest of us who only come here. Is that right? Jessica took a deep breath in admiration. Looks like Aniki had guessed it right. It's just like you say. No one really believes on the inside. But on the outside, they accept that she exists. See? It's just like the way some people are about God. Even if they know God doesn't exist, they feel like it'd be uncouth if actually said it out loud. How do you think the servants feel about it? Are they just going along with it because grandfather, their employer, says that she exists? Well, I don't really know the details, but between the servants, the story about Beatrice has been treated like a ghost. Remember yesterday when Shannon was talking to us down by the beach? That story about how one night when she was doing the rounds in the mansion, she saw something unsettling? She did say something like that, didn't she? Back then, I thought she was just being really nice to help improve the mood. But it felt like she was serious when she said it. That's right, she definitely said it. She definitely said the same kind of thing that Genji and the rest had all unanimously declared back in the kitchen. In addition, some servants have also seen will-o'-the-wisps and glittering butterflies dancing around. Kanon-kun also saw something like that when he went patrolling one night. Recently, you often hear servants talking about the strange footsteps heard inside the mansion near midnight. We've whispered together that Beatrice-sama in portrait sometimes makes herself invisible, walks throughout the mansion. It happened a while ago, but even I have heard footsteps while patrolling at night that resemble these stories. That's right, she definitely said that. Exactly the same thing that I had been told just now. Ah, but there's nothing to be afraid of. Beatrice-sama is another ruler of this mansion, separate from the master. There's no need to be unnaturally afraid. If you respect her, I hear she won't do anything bad. However, she can be quite terrifying if you don't respect her, right? Correct. Heard that just before I began working here. Someone who spoke badly about Beatrice-sama fell down the stairs and quit after receiving a large injury to their back. Because of that, there was a rumor between the servants that Beatrice-sama's anger had been brought down upon this person. If you don't respect her, you'll suffer her wrath and get hurt. So to the servants, Beatrice's existence is just as credible as the story that if you pull pranks on Inari-san, you'll receive Kitsune-sama's curse. Of course, even though everyone accepts that curses and the like don't exist in the modern era, people are still afraid and still have a little respect for them. You often see it when, in a residential area, someone is building a house and they call a Shinto priest for a ceremony to honor the god of that plot of land. You might think that was just a big waste of time and money, but it said that if the workers don't do that, a big accident will occur and so they'll excuse me, so they'll never neglect to do it. Tells her about how if an Inari shrine is carelessly removed during a town replanning, there would be a curse by Kitsune-sama. I think I might have read somewhere that when the occupying forces were trying to expand an airport, they tried to remove an Inari-san that was in the way. The workers kept getting struck down by mysterious fevers. Even in modern cities like Tokyo, it wasn't rare to see modern buildings packed all around an old Inari shrine, leaving the shrine itself untouched. This wasn't limited to Japan. Probably similar to how foreigners baptize babies. If I remember right, by Christian doctrine, unbaptized souls have even the slightest amount of sin, they still go to hell. Putting water on a child's forehead doesn't do anything but make them cry. But if by doing that, parents can prevent their children going to hell, they will happily go through with that ceremony. In short, even in this modern society of reason, we were still unable to throw away every trace of belief and fear. We could even say that we accept certain sorts of supernatural things, though in a passive way. That was Limbo. Half Narrow, it depends on the Christian doctrine. Some believe in limbo, some do not. It has varied over time and between different branches of Christianity. Maybe the only difference on this island is that Beatrice is the object of that worship. So in other words, if anything happens that doesn't seem explainable in human terms, it's called the work of Beatrice. I think Shannon-chan said it herself. Windows and doors and locks that were tightly shut would be open the next time you went to check them. Lights that should have been on went out. Lights that should have been out were turned on. If I remember, even Jessica was joking about it, saying it was also the work of Beatrice when she couldn't find her bag in the morning. Your memory's pretty good. Normally, you'd say some little imps took them, but on this island, it's Beatrice. Well, it's all pretty stupid, though. This mansion has been standing for about 30 years by now, hasn't it? It's natural for things that old to get their fair share of ghosts and occult stories. Like the 7 mysteries at school. That's where I'll spin the chessboard around. Huh? Simply put, on this island, there's a rule that Beatrice gets blamed for anything that couldn't have been done by humans. Things that humans can't do. But many humans are here. 18. In other words, the culprit is using the rules of this island to make it look like a witch's crime. Which proves that they desperately want us to think a 19th bit. I don't like it. I don't like it one bit. What do you mean you don't like it? Assume some invisible 19th person exists. Though they exist. If it were me, I'd do it with even more perfect timing. What do you mean by perfect timing? Well, crime took place sometime between the middle of the night and dawn, right? We had some people who were talking together until the middle of the night, some people night shifts, and some people who'd returned to their rooms and were sleeping. Everyone's alibi is really vague, so there's plenty of room to suspect that the crimes were an inside job. George Anarchy, Aunt Eva probably told you too, right? I watched Tiger Doc. No, I've not watched that on Netflix yet. That there's a good chance this crime was an inside job. Yes, I guess. In other words, if this invisible 19th person really exists and wants to let us know it, the first crime was a complete failure. No, in the first place, they chose the wrong time of day to do it. This invisible 19th person really wanted to show themselves. They had to make sure that the crime took place under conditions which proved that the remaining 12 people were all innocent. As long as there is a single human we can suspect, this 19th person's attempt to highlight their presence fails. That's why near midnight, when everyone's alibis are at their vaguest, 19th person's existence is also at its vaguest. And yet, the culprit chose to commit the crime at that time. By committing the crime then, one of the 18 would obviously be suspected. And yet someone handed Maria the letter and called themselves a witch, even though everyone denies they did it. In other words, you're trying to say that one of the 18 is trying to make it look like a 19th called Beatrice exists? It's a pretty crazy idea. I think Mom's theory about someone hiding outside the mansion is a bit more credible. Battler, don't tell me you actually think someone is the culprit. do. Someone's trying to force us to accept that Beatrice exists. That's right, this whole thing started as far back as the letter last night. I don't have any basis or proof, but with the chessboard turned around, this is my best guess. Seriously, that's too crazy. Sure, you haven't been reading too many of your detective novels. However, it's an angle we can't ignore. Whether there's a 19th person or not, the culprit's definitely planning something involving that rule about this island. Just now, listening to Battler Kuhn talk, I remember something that's a little disturbing. Something disturbing? Yes. Do you remember? Beatrice's letter. It said that Beatrice was going to collect interest. And by interest, she mentioned everything of the Ushinomiya family. Jessica and I thought back on what Maria had read aloud the previous night. Yeah, it said that. Definitely said that. That the collection of the interest was going to take place shortly, but if the riddle of the gold could be solved, she'd lose that right. Grandfather received the gold and rebuilt the Ushinomiya family. In other words, according to Beatrice, everything created using the gold as capital counts as part of the interest. Which means... That's a pretty scary joke. Pretty scary for a joke, Anarchy. You don't mean everything of the Ushinomiya family. In other words, everything that grandfather gave birth to. In other words, everyone with grandfather's blood flowing through their veins. If you interpret the letter that way, these murders are just Beatrice legitimately collecting interest. If that's the case, these crimes will continue, because the collection of interest is still only halfway complete. George turned around, looking over the parlor. There were still many people who held the name Ushinomiya. And because Goto-san and Shannon-chan had been killed, he knew that not even the servants were safe, despite lacking the Ushinomiya name. So are they planning to kill us all? That's weird, George-san. In that case, why only 6 people? They should have been able to kill a lot more. At worst, it should have been possible for them to assault everyone while they were sleeping and kill them in a single night. Why didn't they do that? Special clause. If someone manages to solve the riddle of the gold, their right to the interest will be lost. Remember how the letter ended? It challenged us to solve the riddle of father's gold. Jesus. Looks like we're finally understanding the culprit's message. In other words, the culprit's telling us to try and solve the riddle on the epitaph grandfather had made. On top of that, they're saying that if we just sit around, they'll keep collecting the interest. I realize this is all based on several guesses that are way out there. Not everything that happens in this world fits together in a perfect line. Most of the events we don't understand are only individual points. By fitting them into a straight line, we're beginning to understand. The points at either end of the line are really close. The line itself is more logical and easier to understand. When those points are really far away, the opposite is true. It's the distance between those points that makes us say our guesses are way out there. However, if the distances we span are too narrow, that means our thinking will be narrow too. Is there a difference between making guesses and reasoning? Am I just using easily made guesses to try and force this crime into a pattern I can understand? No, that's not it. When you're lost in the dark and searching around with your hands, what you're doing is relying on your imagination and making guesses. Only imagination can find the points that need to be tied together. Reasoning is nothing more than the act of drawing lines. If you can't imagine, you can't reason. What I'm doing now might be way out there, but I'm sure it isn't a mistake either. Only the power of imagination can pull clues from the darkness. And then I can use the power of reasoning to tie those clues together. It's a lot like the process of searching out an enemy's weak spot and striking. It's okay if I'm way out there. Find a weak point first. Then we can think about how to strike. Right now is the time to find points we can tie together later. Still raining. Blow my train. Island's gonna sink. For the time being, I put aside whether a 19th person existed. Announced our theory that the goal of the culprit might have been to make us solve the riddle of the epitaph. Uncle Hideyoshi seemed to be extremely interested, but Aunt Natsui said it was ridiculous and dismissed it. Of course, if you think about it that way, even the letter from yesterday makes sense. That motive seems to fit pretty well with the facts. Setting aside whoever it was that gave Maria-chan the letter. Ugh. Beatrice exists. Ugh. Even though she was puffing up her cheeks in that cute way she'd been doing since yesterday, I couldn't think of it as cute. If I poked fun at her, it might suddenly transform into that creepy laugh. There's no hidden gold. However, if the culprit is blindly sure of its existence, there is. You know there is at least one gold bar. If they're trying to make us solve the riddle before snatching the gold away for themselves, then I will agree it makes sense. However, if that were the case, why would they start by killing those most highly ranked in the family? I see your point. If they wanted to make us solve the riddle, killing those closest to Kinzo-san doesn't sound like a good plan to me. That's true enough. If we're going with that argument, wouldn't it have been quicker to threaten Father in the first place? You'd think it'd be faster to just ask the person who wrote it, rather than try to force us to solve it. You've got a point there, but also Grandfather's minister. Still, I think it'd take more than your average threat to make Father spill the beans. Anyone who knows Kinzo-san well would probably realize he won't bow to ordinary threats. He's the man who bears responsibility for the Ushiromiya family and all its vast wealth. He's been exposed to many threats and attacks in the past. The family only prospers today because he was able to overcome all of them. That's freaking right. I can't even imagine our grandfather obeying someone because of a threat. Jessica, watch your language. Mom. In that case, what about this idea? No, wait. Is this one also way out there? I couldn't hesitate. Out there ideas are like bows and arrows. Might be hard to hit with, but it's a great weapon because it hit enemies far away. Say most people who've died in battles were killed by arrow wounds. In a battle, you can't just shoot off one arrow. Shoot a whole bunch of arrows at once, pushing forward towards the enemy troops with a wall of them. So keep shooting over and over. Create a wall as you push forward towards the truth. The culprit is after the hidden gold. Forcing us to solve the riddle wouldn't be very efficient for them. Much quicker and easier to ask the person who made it in the first place. In that case, the question is this all a message directed at Grandfather? In other words, these murders were a threat made against Grandfather. If he didn't tell the culprit where the gold was, his family members would be killed off one by one. What if we weren't the only ones being forced to solve this riddle? What if Grandfather was too? If you think about it that way, it explains Grandfather's mysterious disappearance. The culprit has already attacked Grandfather, and judging by the state of the 6 corpses were left in, it should have been left on display somewhere with that horrible makeup added. But despite that, we still haven't found him. So does that mean Grandfather has been kidnapped and is being held somewhere? How could... You aren't saying, how could... Yeah? That sounds interesting. So Grandfather's being confined somewhere. The culprit's saying we'll be killed off one by one if he doesn't tell them where the gold is. Pains me to imagine how you find that interesting. Aunt Natsui glared at her, but Aunt Eva just smiled calmly. Since we still haven't seen him after all this time, I think it's almost certain that Grandfather's gotten caught up in the crime. If you think about it, you can't just ignore Battler-kun's theory, right? Quiet, George. First place, when did Father actually disappear? Who was the last person to see Father? It was probably me. This morning, when we didn't know where my husband and the rest were, we discussed the possibility of them being in Father's study. I went to check his room and greeted him there. Come to think of it, I've been holding the key to his study this whole time, haven't I? Genji, let me return this to you. Aunt Natsui pulled out the gold key and handed it to Genji. Looking at the key, Aunt Eva giggled. Hey Genji-san, I'm sure the police will inspect Father's room thoroughly. If there's anything hidden there, it'll just be exposed anyway. So maybe it'd be better if you just told us about it right here, right now. Talking about... It's simple. Father's study is a closed room, with no way in or out except for that key, right? I want to verify whether that's true. There's one entrance to Father's study. What about the window? Any other entrances or exits? There are none. There is no way to get in except the entrance. You're sure about that? There isn't some secret hidden door or anything. Since Father isn't here, I am the highest ranked member of the Ushiromiya family. I'm asking you as a representative of the Ushimiya family head. Remember that when you answer me. Are there any ways in or out of the room other than the main entrance? As Father's closest aide, I'm sure you would know. Aunt Natsui looked a little offended at the part about being the highest-ranked family member, but she kept her mouth closed for the time being and waited for Genji's answer. I couldn't help but feel a little uncomfortable. Why was she going on and on about hidden doors? You too, Kanon-kun, Kumasawa-san. If you know, won't you tell me? If there is one, it'd be better if you said so. Otherwise, a certain person might be driven into a corner in a second. If we assume that there is a hidden door, then my argument comes to nothing. Aunt Eva didn't specify which person was about to be driven into a corner, but following the flow of conversation, I had to feel she was referring to Aunt Natsui. Mother, what are you talking about? George, stay quiet for a bit. What do you say? Genji-san? Kanon-kun? Or Kumasawa-san? Is there a hidden door? Or not? Genji-san, when you remodeled Father's study, you must have overseen the construction. I won't let you say you don't know. There's nothing like that in the master's study. For sure. What about Kanon-kun? One who's allowed to wear the one-winged eagle. That's right. I'm sure. There is no such hidden door in the master's study. Kumasawa-san? No, I haven't heard of such a thing. What about Dr. Nanjo? You've had a close relationship with Father. I have never heard of something like that. Very well then. So are you ready? Let me begin. Very simple. Everyone tilted their head doubtfully, wondering what Aunt Eva was starting to talk about so proudly. Aunt Eva laughed triumphantly, as though she were about to reveal a secret only she knew. Natsuine-san was the last person to spot Father, right? I forget the exact time, but I think it was a little before 9 in the morning. Ne-san, do you remember? I ran into you just as you were coming out of Father's study, right? Yes, I remember. What does that have to do with anything? And when was the next time you went to visit Father's study? That was after we found the bodies of Ni-san and the rest, right? Together with me, you went up to the study to report that, and we discovered he wasn't there. By the way, Ni-san, at that time, when you went to enter Father's study, did you notice anything? Notice anything? What are you talking about? Come on, you picked up some trash, right? A folded receipt. I do seem to remember picking up some trash. How is that relevant? I got that receipt when I bought some candy at a store before arriving at the airport. Aunt Eva pulled a small bag of candy out of her handbag. Ah, the receipt from that candy you bought back there. But Mother, what does that receipt have to do with anything? George, stay quiet and listen for just a bit longer. Uncle Hideyoshi's expression was a little strict. Apparently, he understood what Aunt Eva was getting at. It really was just a whim. I definitely didn't foresee anything. Or try to set up a trap for Aunt Natsui-ne-san or anything like that. The music is great. Some of the music in this game is actually fantastic. Actually, about that receipt. Ne-san, you remember bumping into me right after the last time you saw Father, right? At that time, I wedged this into the door to the study. So what does that mean? Are you saying no one opened the door until Aunt Natsui picked up that receipt? Wait a second, Aunt Eva. Wedging a receipt in would be obvious. It's possible that when Grandfather opened the door, he noticed it, found it amusing, and stuck it back in the door. Jessica hurriedly argued back. Still didn't really know what this all meant, but she realized that, whatever it was, it would raise suspicions about her own mother. Of course, I folded the receipt up very small so that no one would notice it. But even if you assume that he saw it fall, he would have no way of knowing how high up the door it had been stuck, right? I checked it while Natsui-ne-san was taking the key out. The receipt was still stuck not 1 millimeter away from where I put it. I can't understand why you would pull such a childish prank. I bet you were the one who did that prank on the door to my room, too. The door to your room? It was unpleasant to talk about, so I never mentioned it. But when I woke up this morning, there were signs of some prank on the outside of my door with what was probably the same red paint that was scribbled across the shutter. There were some unpleasant marks as though someone had been tearing at the door. Wait, what's this? Why'd you keep quiet about this till now? My apologies. And so many horrible things have occurred since then, I had completely forgotten about it until this moment. I don't know anything about that. I'm not talking about your door, but the door to Father's room, right? Between the time you confirmed he was in his room and the time we confirmed that he wasn't, the door wasn't opened even once. How did Father get out if he didn't use the door? I don't know that. That's what I want to know. Natsune-san, other than you, who else checked to see whether Father was in his room? Last night, the last time I met Kinzo-san was when we were playing chess. So I was with him until just before dinner. Who saw him after that? I did. I gave him his dinner last night. Yes, Chen and I were with him. So at that time, Father was still definitely in his room. However, Natsune-san, when you found out he wasn't there, it looks like all ways in or out of the study were closed, right? But even so, you said you met with him this morning. I don't understand why everyone has become so gloomy. Could someone please explain it to me? Father and Mother, are you saying that what Natsui says about meeting Grandfather this morning was a lie? Like hell she'd lie about that. Mom's guiltless. Why would she lie? Jessica, I keep telling you to watch your language. All at once, the whole room was in an uproar. Aunt Eva and Aunt Natsui confronted each other across the parlor table, with George confronting Jessica. What the heck's going on? Many people spotted him last night, right? But since this morning, the only one who claims to have seen Father was Natsune-san. And then there's that strange fact we learned from my receipt. So how can we connect these points together? Aunt Eva urged everyone to imagine it. Sure, that receipt could become an important point, but I didn't know which other points to tie it to or how. If we try searching for the answer Aunt Eva probably wants, we'll find that Aunt Natsui lied and acted as though Grandfather was in his room this morning. Has that fact been exposed by a whim of Aunt Eva's? I don't get it at all. Why would Mom have to lie? She had no reason to, right? That's what I want to know. But Jessica-chan, you can't be sure she had no reason to lie and say that Grandfather was in. After all, you see it in mystery novels every now and then. That trick where people fake the time of death to create an alibi for themselves. What are you talking about? Never heard of that. We still haven't found Father yet, but it's pretty natural to assume he's already been killed. If that's true, there's no doubt we'll find his corpse soon. If at that point the time of death could be cleverly faked, Natsune-san would be able to create an alibi. You understand? Everyone? Please. Morning, when Aunt Natsui confirmed that Grandfather was there, she lied. And he was already dead at that time? And then she moved the body to some other location and tampered with it so that when we find it, we'll think he was killed just a second ago? That'd make it possible for her to create an alibi, even just by staying with the rest of us. Then she could say, I heard someone screaming. Dash over there, and become the first to find the body along with everyone else. Is that what Aunt Eva's saying? Ridiculous. After all, detective novels are merely books for the purpose of entertainment. You can only think of such an indiscreet idea because you read them all the time. That's right. Even if she did try to fake the time of death a little, all that would be blown away in an instant once the police did their autopsy. That might have worked in the past, but do you really think that kind of trick would work in modern Japan? It doesn't make sense. You think so? This morning when Dr. Nanja looked at the corpses, he was only able to give a vague estimate of the time of death, right? Autopsy results are very easily affected by the environment and differences. It's a very relative estimate with an uncertainty of several hours. And, unfortunately, the police scientific investigation will have to wait until tomorrow. It wouldn't be easy to measure the correct time of death so accurately, even in modern Japan. Isn't that right, Dr. Nanjo? Examining a corpse is an extremely difficult task that requires both experience and instinct. I have heard that there is a very high chance of a mistaken diagnosis. I imagine it is very possible for a misreading of just a few hours to occur. However, for an alibi, that's more than enough. It's an old trick. It's a trick that works well enough. Natsune-san, it's not like we want to suspect you, okay? We just want you to prove your innocence so we don't have to suspect you. What's this innocence you want me to prove? This morning I definitely met with Father, and he told me to keep the one-winged eagle engraved in my heart. Are you denying that he said that too? I will certainly not permit that. I won't let you deny that Father said those words. Or maybe Father's body won't appear anywhere. Normally, a person has to be missing for 7 years before they're officially dead. Wouldn't that be a clever way to extend Father's nearly finished life for another 7 years and keep all of his wealth for yourself? I can't let you get away with saying that. I can't let you get away with saying any more. I am Ushinomiya Natsui. Although I do not have the right to wear the one-winged eagle on my body, it is certainly engraved on my heart. What do you think you're saying to the wife of Kraus, successor to the head, the one who will act as such in his place? This is indeed Knives Out with the ghost. What's this? Are you going to shoot me with that gun? Go ahead. Only you just shoot. You're just desperate because you can't think of a way out, right? Do it. Just try to obscure the truth with violence. Oh boy. You... It wasn't like Aunt Natsui had been actually holding that gun at the ready and threatening anyone. But as she was egged on by Aunt Ava, she did hold it at the ready. Unsurprisingly, once things got to this stage, Jessica and Genji tried to stop her. Madame, please, calm yourself. Mom, you aren't lying, so there's no reason for you to listen to this. Calm down, Natsui-san. All you've got to do is swear that Father definitely was in that room. Why are you getting so worked up? That's correct. Natsui-san isn't lying. Shouldn't that be the end of it? Then I want you to explain. How did Father manage to disappear from the room? The window was closed tight from the inside. Same was true for the door, right? This morning, if you really met with Father, then you must explain how Father disappeared from the unopenable door closed room scenario. If you don't, that'd mean you're lying after all, right? How far do you plan to mock me? If you want to argue back, go ahead. That's all. That's right. Try explaining it right here, right now. If you do, I'll apologize for suspecting you. How did Father manage to get out from that closed room? I cannot explain, and there's no need for me to do so. Really? Then let me explain it. Let's take the best parts from my perspective and yours and come up with a more friendly explanation. I'll believe what you said about Father still being in his room this morning. However, the next time the door was opened, Father wasn't there. You don't have any objections so far, right? I have no desire to hear anything more you have to say. Shut your frivolous mouth. My reasoning goes like this, okay? I can confirm that on both occasions you were the only one to go through that door. And the receipt proves it. So what's the answer to the puzzle of how Father left the room? The window. He was sent out the window. Natsui-ne-san, you threw Father out the third-story window of the study into the courtyard. You... Madame, please, endure it. Iva-sama, please stop this. After that, when you left and said you were going to check the doors and windows, you took Father's corpse, which had fallen in the courtyard, and hid it. That was probably when you took some measures to fake the time of death, right? This ties in with the case regarding Cross Nissan and the rest, also the case regarding Beatrice last night. It's a really good chance we've got reason to suspect Natsui-san in all those cases. Normally I wouldn't want to say this, but now that it's out in the open, there's nothing else I can do. Please, Natsui-ne-san, please explain how you can be innocent. Otherwise, I can't help but suspect you. Why me? Why must I, Ushinomiya Natsui, be insulted like this? Looks like we've got everyone's views on record now. Hehe. It's useless. It's all useless, Aunt Eva. What do you mean useless? Jessica looked up at me, hanging on to my every word. Aunt Eva's expression was confident as ever. Useless, you say? What is? Battler-kun. Tell me. You're only convinced it was Aunt Natsui because you're only looking at the case from a single angle. It's not like I'm defending her, but that bluff of a checkmate isn't gonna fly. I think your reasoning regarding that receipt was passable. Yes, Battler does have a punchable smile. It's not a bad threat of logic, but I'd only give it a grade of 65 at best. If this were an exam, that'd be bad enough to get you extra lessons in detention, right? Heh. Oh my. Well, how do you think anyone could break through the door sealed by my receipt and make Father disappear? Other than by my theory. It's true that your theory is an interesting one. And if you could say for sure that there's no way to make Grandfather disappear, you probably would be able to prove that the last person to see him, Aunt Natsui, was guilty. However, since there is still a possibility she's innocent and these accusations are false, we can't be sure about that. Then Battler-kun, are you saying someone other than Natsui Ne-san made grandfather disappear? It'd be impossible for anyone else to do it. Our receipt proves that, right? After the first time she visited that study, and until the second time when we visited it together, the study was perfectly closed room. When the seal was broken on the closed room, he was already missing. If that doesn't prove she's the culprit, what kind of trick could they have used? Grandfather hid in a closet? Like I said, Aunt Eva, only 65 points. Let's try spinning the chessboard around, shall we? The question isn't how someone managed to make grandfather disappear from the outside. We should think about how grandfather disappeared from the inside. The door had the receipt stuck in it, so it couldn't have been used. He also couldn't have gone through the window because you can't lock it from the outside, and when Aunt Eva visited the study, she checked to make sure it was locked. So the window also wasn't used. At that point, the study really was a closed room. We have to accept it. However, the study didn't remain a closed room forever. Once the seal created by the receipt was removed, it would be possible for someone to escape by the door. In other words, the question isn't how Aunt Natsui made grandfather disappear. We need to think about how he was able to escape. Grandfather's study isn't an ordinary study, right? According to Genji-san, there's a toilet and a kitchen and even a bedroom, almost like a little house. For example, what if he was hiding under the bed and the two of you only thought he was missing? Aunt Eva, even you didn't check that far, right? And then the two of you went back down the stairs thinking he wasn't there. At that time, the receipt was already gone. In other words, if grandfather wasn't hiding in the room the whole time, if grandfather was hiding in his room the whole time, it was a closed room. Escaped after letting the two of you go past him, you can crack this closed room right open. What are you talking about? Why would father need to escape the room in such a bizarre fashion? Don't be absurd. That might be absurd. However, it still shows that there's a possibility Aunt Natsui is being falsely accused. Your receipt wasn't perfect. Chess, we might call it check, but it isn't checkmate. But the thing that really pisses me off is how you're pressuring Aunt Natsui to explain it, then claiming that she must be guilty if she doesn't. If you want to go down that road, why don't you let me, Shinomiya Battler, spin the chessboard around one more time? Aunt Eva, according to your own argument, you must explain to us why you and Uncle Hideyoshi couldn't have killed those 6 last night, casually returned to the guest house. You've been trying to force Aunt Natsui to explain, so I'm sure you can prove your own innocence, right? Especially now that all of grandfather's wealth has suddenly plopped down right into your hands. That's right, you're suspicious enough yourself, aren't you? If you say Mom's suspicious because she was the last person to see him, then what about you, Aunt Eva, the last person to see Dad and the rest? Just like Battler said, prove that you two weren't the ones who killed them. Mother, I also think your reasoning was a little overeager. Sure, the receipt was an important hint, but like Battler-kun said, that's not enough to prove that Aunt Natsui was responsible for some plot. We're all equally suspicious. It's not right for only Aunt Natsui to be persecuted. A proud father crawling under his bed? Well, nonsense like that an explanation. In that case, why don't you explain first? Who killed those 6, and how, and then try showing us proof that you weren't involved. Oh gosh. Asthma? Milady! Jessica suddenly started coughing. At first I thought she was just choking after yelling too loud, but before long I realized how painful it looked. Jessica kept coughing and choking, down on her hands and knees. Jessica, hang in there. Dr. Nanjo. Jessica-san, your inhaler, quickly. No wait, I have one with me. Dr. Nanjo pulled a broncholator inhaler from his own bag, was lying on the sofa, and handed it to Jessica. Come to think of it, 6 years ago, didn't Jessica sometimes break into violent coughing fits and have to use that? However, 6 years ago, I never saw Jessica look like she was in this much pain. Aniki, was Jessica's asthma always this bad? It's gotten a lot worse these last few years. It's no problem when she's normal, but when an attack comes suddenly, she can't stop coughing anymore. Cough. I'm not doing all the coughing. Lady, your medicine. Here. Taking the inhaler from Kanen-kun, Jessica used it with a practiced hand. It looked like her throat would still itch for a while, but she had it under control. You okay, Jessica? Scared me. It's no big deal. Don't worry about it. Beads of sweat covered Jessica's whole body, and she couldn't hide her rough breathing. But it looked like her sudden attack had calmed down for now. Yeah, Hefner, I wasn't gonna make that joke, but... This disturbance had made the dangerous atmosphere up until now seem slightly unfair. That's fine. That kind of battle of mutual suspicion is completely unnecessary. When you think about it, finding alibis for each other and looking for the culprit is probably meaningless. After all, we're just powerless ordinary people. When the police come tomorrow, they'll definitely employ cutting-edge techniques and investigate the case thoroughly, solving all of the riddles and arresting the culprit. You have a lot of faith in them. Perhaps Battler-kun is right after all. Just as Natsuine-san is suspicious, I can't ignore the fact that I'm suspicious too. Arguing about that now will surely be unproductive. Everything will be fine if we just leave it to the police tomorrow. But don't you want to know too, Battler-kun, who the culprit is? Don't you want to let them know the pain you feel from losing someone precious to you as soon as possible? Yes, powerful ordinary heirs to a massive fortune with your own island. Yes. Yes, they are so powerless. I mean, to be fair, all of them have squandered their own money. Except for the kids. Because the kids don't have money because they're dependents, so, you know. Oh, well, no, I suppose George does have money in and of his own right because he's an adult now. So, I suppose George is the least helpless. George did it. There we go. We've solved it. I won't deny that. Even one day would be too long to let the wonderful bastard who's behind this go. But that doesn't mean I want to suspect one of the 18. Even though what I said earlier, I don't even want to suspect you, Aunt Eva. To me, you're an awesome aunt who's always fun and playful. I don't want to trade insults with an aunt like that. I wouldn't want to do that with anyone here. Right? Everyone? I feel the same way as Battler-kun. It's pointless to trade insults. It's probably just the stress built up because so many people have been crammed in one space since morning. Probably. It's only natural. It may not be my place to say it, but I think we should all relax as much as possible. Eva, I think we better cool our heads too. Receipt's definitely a big clue for figuring out how Father escaped. We should tell the police about it when they come. That's right. Right. I just felt a little triumphant when I figured out that part with the receipt. Of course, it isn't fair to only suspect Natsuine-san, right? Just as suspicious. Still, Battler-kun, at least the part about the receipt is real, okay? Don't forget it. Try thinking deeply about what it means for one more time, okay? Aunt Eva and Uncle Hideyoshi stood up. It looked like they planned on leaving the parlor. In the end, it's pointless for us to keep playing detectives. After all, the police will reveal everything anyway. That's right. Even if we don't play this detective game, the typhoon will pass. And when those lively seagulls return to the harbor, everything will settle itself. That's right. Think about it. This kind of crime is completely trivial. It will definitely be resolved. Even if we do nothing. Trivial? Really? 6 people got married? If we do nothing when the seagulls cry. Roll credits! Natsuine-san, I take it you don't want to see my face anymore. I feel the same. If I remember correctly yesterday, you had some rooms prepared for us in the mansion so that we wouldn't need to go back to the guest house, right? Those should each have a bath and a toilet, as well as a lock and chain to secure the door. I do have a bed to lie on, and my husband will be able to watch TV without having to fight with Maria-chan over a channel to watch, right? Do whatever you want. Make sure to be cautious. Thank you, Nathan. Mind your own business. I'll be counting on you to keep an eye on everyone, okay? Because the culprit is definitely here. And Nathan, make sure you don't forget to keep an eye on yourself, too. Have you finished taking your shots? Parting shots? Yes, I'm finished. See you, Natsuine-san. Denji-san, let us know when it's time for dinner. Until then, we'll lock ourselves in with the chain. Genji, Cannon, escort them to the guest room. We'll be fine. I hate shady escorts. In fact, I'd be more comfortable if nobody leaves this room until we reach ours. Let's go, George. I'll stay here with everyone. George, culprit is in this room. Do you plan on staying in a place like that? Leaving this room would be the same as suspecting one of my relatives. I can't believe anyone in our family is capable of something that horrible. George. Darling, you tell him to. George is already an adult man. If his code tells him not to leave this room, then it's up to him. Let him do whatever he wants. Father. Aunt Eva and Uncle Hideyoshi left. The only voice that called after them was the sound of the rain. Tyler was being buried beneath the savage atmosphere. When I looked at the clock, I was surprised to find it was already evening. We really spent that much time worrying about needless things, talking with each other, fighting with each other. Feeling bored, I started scratching at my head when Maria and I made eye contact. I was a little surprised since I thought she was completely immersed in the TV. I believe it now. Huh? The letter, the murders, everything. It was all Beatrice. In fact, I almost feel like begging her to come and take credit for it all. I want it to be the work of a 19th person. Otherwise, the 18 of us will have to keep on suspecting each other. I think believing in a 19th person is better than that. Bringing grandfather outside without opening the door or windows must be a piece of cake for Beatrice, right? Maria, after taking a single short breath, hung her head and raised her face again. That's right. Yeah, locking a door is useless against a witch. Beatrice is familiar with all 72 demons. 33rd ranked Gop gives the power to instantly carry the desired person to any location. To her, taking a person out of any closed room isn't hard at all, you see. Witches sure are incredible. Tell her if she feels like committing another crime, to do it in a way that no human could. Make me believe that a 19th person, no, a witch, exists. Yeah. Okay. If I meet her, I'll tell her. Yes, the world according to Gop. Crap. Nothing's made sense to me for a while now. Just when I want to believe in a 19th person, I deny it. And just when I want to believe there are only 18 people, I deny that too. Even though I want there to be more than just the 18 people here, I can't accept the existence of that 19th person. Short, even though there are more than 18 people, there are less than 19 people. The number of people in this mansion is 19x18. Or greater than 18, less than 19, yeah. So the number of people can't be represented by an integer. However, it's impossible for there to be anything after the decimal point. You shouldn't be able to show the number of people with anything but an integer. Talk to me about state population statistics then, because they have half a person all the time. And yet, 19x18. How do you explain that fraction less than 1? It's no wonder. That 19th person was something that couldn't be seen. That's why, since you can only write the number of people as an integer, you couldn't see that person. That witch cannot be seen, because Beatrice has no body. Therefore, she is invisible. Is there a 19th person or not? Does the witch exist or not? Less than 19, greater than 18. Witch exists somewhere in that X. The uncomfortable atmosphere continued even after those two left. It was thick with the idea that simply thinking about the culprit's identity would be the same as deciding who to suspect. It had begun to feel like discussion of the case was itself taboo. No one mentioned the case, at least out loud. However, those thoughts were what filled our minds. All that we couldn't say out loud made our heads feel like they were going to explode. So, at least on the outside, the parlor had once again regained its calm mood. Everything was left unsaid. It feels like the rain's gotten a little lighter. Ooh, still pouring down. Ooh. Even if it did stop, there's no boat on this island. But it'd be nice if the boat came quickly tomorrow. I've had enough of this Western Mansion vacation, heh. Mom, when will the boat come tomorrow? Normally the boat to take them back would arrive at 3 today. Probably sent us a phone call to say that they wouldn't come again They would come again after the typhoon passed, but unfortunately the phones aren't working. But they aren't children over there. They were told to both drop off and collect our guests. They will most likely arrive first thing tomorrow morning. Probably about 9, I believe. It was completely black outside. When I looked at the clock, I realized it was just past 7 p.m. I'm starting to get hungry. In the kitchen, Kumasawa was cooking enthusiastically. She had laid out a variety of dishes. While they didn't match the level of Goto's artful cooking, they were still quite gorgeous. It was an act of kindness from Kumasawa, who was trying to enliven everyone's low spirits with some food. Kumasawa wasn't nearly as talented as a professional cook like Goto, but she was far from unskilled. On the contrary, since she had been brought up in a fishing village, the simple food she created was sometimes highly praised. Kanon arranged the food Kumasawa had finished creating on plates under her direction. Kanon also helped in the kitchen sometimes, but since he was rarely placed in that role, he was slightly awkward, even though he tried his best. Self-conscious about the fact that he couldn't cleverly arrange the food, Kanon's expression darkened slightly. But Kumasawa smiled as though everything was fine. Oh, it's arranged beautifully. Kanon-kun, aren't you skilled? If it had been Shannon-san, it would look even more beautiful. Kanon stopped arranging it and hung his head. Shannon was the one who always assisted Kumasawa in her cooking. Tonight, Kanon was doing it instead. And as he remembered Shannon's face and her brutal end, he grimaced. Forget that for now. Genji spoke kindly to Kanon as he advanced on. Nanjo had escaped from the parlor once the mood had grown sour, and Genji had become his opponent in a game of chess upon Nanjo's request. Yes, I will forget it for now. Indeed, that was probably for the best. Genji purposefully refrained from facing Kanon as he spoke. He did so because he understood that it might make things tougher on Kanon if he noticed that someone was looking at his eyes. Nanjo also understood that and held back any thoughtless words. Wonder where Kinzo-san has gone. There's something weird about Kanon. And I didn't mention this before, but I feel like he never talked when Goto was in the room. It was only Shannon. It's weird. There's something about the two of them and Shannon and Kanon. And it's throwing me off. Anyway, I wonder where Kinzo-san has gone. I hope that he is safe, but I do not know. However, I believe everything has proceeded as the master has hoped and arranged for. To distrust that would exceed my role as furniture in service to the master. Aren't you scared, Genji-san? I am frightened that something bad will occur again tonight. I have nothing to be afraid of. I serve the Yoshinomiya family, and that is all. Nanjo sighed through his nose, made a carefully considered move. Nanjo was very slightly dubious. Could Genji possibly be thinking that he'd be left out of this? Couldn't even imagine what was happening inside this mansion, but he definitely couldn't deny the possibility that Kinzo had devised something. Honestly, I would think it was a plan, honestly. If you liken this island to chess, Kinzo had opened the game. As a result, 6 pieces had been defeated. Could it be that Genji was calm because he believed he alone was on the outside of the chessboard and therefore safe? Nanjo thought about it. Isn't everyone just a piece on this chessboard, lined up equally without any exceptions? It wasn't even Genji, who had gained more of Kinzo's trust than anyone. No, who was confident of his position as Kinzo's close friend. Just another one of the pieces laid out on the chessboard? Genji-san, I'm truly frightened about tonight. I hope with all my heart that we will still be safe when tomorrow morning comes. You're totally doomed. Sorry. Just, I can feel it coming.